Hello everyone, I think it's time I should start getting this functions video underway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some functions that I wrote, which hopefully you will find useful, but if not, I'm going to explain how I made them, hopefully you'll find that useful, and then finally I'll explain how to install them and probably use them if they're more complicated. So let's get started with this lightning one that I talked about last episode. If you don't know how to make functions, then I'm actually going to re-explain it. Excuse the Tempest's Box resource pack, but what am I using this for? I'm using this for my netherite. You don't need to know anything about the netherite except that it does this. So I've got some lightning rods which summon and they float around. They don't have to float around, the function use is up to you. And after some time they will strike and turn into lightning. We don't have to do it this way though, but there is one more thing I'd like to mention, is that if you contact it, then it will explode regardless of how long it has existed for. So that's the main purpose of the function, and obviously you can modify it however you like. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to make a repeating command block which has a texture that we're actually familiar with, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to place down an armor stand right here, and then I'm just going to run the following function on that armor stand. So we're just going to go to the nearest armor stand that's within, I don't know, 10 blocks. And I'm just going to say function JRAGON'S STF. By the way, that stands for Dragon's Standard Functions. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in entity/lightning. And of course it doesn't do anything because I need to give this command block some power. And basically it's going to run this lightning function on the armor stand. So it's not floating around and it's not going to die because it isn't a vex. So let's walk up to it. And as you can see, it behaves kind of like a charged entity. So now I'm going to explain how to make a function like this, and then I'll show you how to install it. Of course, to do this, I am going to create a new world. So let's go here, and we're just going to call this lightning function. Now, just for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to make it a basic super flat, and we will generate that. Now, I don't want to be spammed with command block spam, so I'm just going to turn the command block output false. And I'm going to turn off log admin commands just to reduce lag, and send command feedback because I just don't like the messages appearing everywhere. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now I want to access all the data that is inside this world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to resource packs, and I'm going to click open resource pack file, and that's going to bring up my resource pack section. Now if I click this .minecraft button here, then it's going to take us into the main Minecraft files. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into saves, and we should find, here we go, the lightning function world that we just created. I'm going to go into there. There's a folder here called data, which I'm going to go into, and look, the word functions. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new folder here. You can call it whatever you like. I'm just going to call it Dragon's STF. And inside there I'm just going to create a subfolder called entity, and then this last spot is where I'm going to put the function. So I'm going to create a new text document, which I'm going to change to MC function. I'm going to call it lightning. You can call it whatever you want. And then I'm going to change the .txt to .mc function. Now if you're using a different operating system like Linux or Mac, then you can Google how to change the file extensions here. Might apply to Windows as well. So yes, it might give you a warning, and there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this with Notepad++. So the very first thing I want to do is just credit myself because I'm the person who wrote this, and then I'm even going to include the date just in case it doesn't work in other versions. I might include the version as well. This is entirely optional, by the way, but I think it's good to get into the habit of doing this kind of stuff. So I'm just going to say this is version 1.12 pre-7, and then there's a description about what this function is going to do. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go scoreboard players tag. We're just going to tag itself saying, hey, I'm the one that should be targeted. And every time the function is run, this is optional, but we can have a nice fireworks particle. And this is where the player detection is going to come into play. We're going to go execute from the nearest player within a radius of 2. If they exist, then we are going to give the tag of the nearest lightning entity. This is why we gave it the tag in the first place. The nearest one, that's why the C=1 is there. And I'm just going to call it strike now. Okay, now what I'm doing here only applies to vexes, so we'll just say tag s add strike now, life ticks 1. So if you have a vex that has a certain amount of life, as soon as the life ticks reaches 1, then it will trigger that lightning function. So if the entity has the strike now tag at this point, either through dying naturally as a Vex or colliding with the player, then it will summon a lightning bolt, obviously because it's lightning. But just because I'm feeling super fancy, I am going to make it summon a firework as well, which I have generated using MC Stacker earlier right here. Last thing we're going to do now is, of course, kill it if the function is successful. So I've got to make sure that's a lowercase s there, and then we're going to save that function, and then we should be good to go, right? Well, we're back in the game and we're ready to test. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload everything. I'm going to just give myself an armor stand because that's what I want to test everything on. And of course I want to give myself a command block so we can test the function. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to say execute at E type equals armor stand. We're just going to say within a radius of 50, and we're going to run that function. So I remember the file path that I specified was JRAGON'S STF entity lightning. That was the file path there. So if I just run this command just once, then you can see not a whole lot happens, but it is actually running the function, because if I walk up to it, obviously it behaves how we'd expect. But if you want it constantly running, then of course we need to make this a repeating command block, and then we need to have it constantly active, and then you can see very, very clearly that the entity is charged. Purely because this looks fun, I'm going to make this work on all the slimes around the area, and we'll just see what happens. There we go. So even with all the particles, it doesn't seem too laggy. However, if you want to remove the lag, then you can get rid of the word force that I added on the particle thing. So it's very customizable the way it works. So if I walk up to it, you can see it behaves that way. Now the other thing I wanted to test is, will it work on vexes? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make this type equals vex. And let's just summon a vex, life ticks 200. And that worked instantly because I'm right on top of it, but if I summon it 5 blocks above, then you will see after supposedly 200 ticks, Vex behavior is kind of weird, so it's not exactly 200 ticks. It should eventually automatically explode. We'll see what you do. So I have a feeling, oh, that one died already, that's interesting. Okay, apparently I'm an idiot for not catching this. Lick ticks. What are they? They don't sound pleasant at all. Life ticks is what I wanted to write, so reload. There we go, then it works. So let's summon another one. We won't make it invulnerable. I think invulnerability ruins it. There we go. That was more like it. 20 ticks and then it explodes on its own. So there we go. Now, what if I wanted to use this in a more practical sense? Well, let's do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my folder again with all my functions. And I'm going to go back into my functions folder here, and I'm just going to call this my map. So what you'd do is you'd have your own map functions in here, and then you can use mine whenever you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a document here called main.mc function. Okay, and then we're going to edit that with Notepad++. So what I want to do now is I'm going to say execute at E tag equals lightning, and then all we have to do is just call that function JRAGON'S STF entity / lightning, just like so. And we're not done yet. We're going to go back into this world, and the first thing we need to do is we need to say game rule, game loop function, and then I called it my map main. Okay, so that should be looping at 20 ticks per second. So now if I were to just grab an armor stand anywhere and go scoreboard players tag E type equals armor stand, add lightning, and reload the world, of course, then you can see that this will now work, and anything that has the lightning tag, so these guys don't have it, give them that lightning tag, and then they will start automatically running the function. If that's too complicated for you, then you can always just stick with command blocks and use the functions that I've made for you. Speaking of which, how do you install my functions? Well, if you've done this for a long time, then it's pretty easy, but you might be new here. So I'm going to go into options, resource packs, and I'm going to open that resource pack file again, go into .minecraft, and then go into my saves, and then go into my world here, go into data, go into functions. Okay, so you can see that I've got JRAGON'S STF there already, but let's just pretend that's not there. What you're going to do is you're going to download the zip file that I've left in Mediafire, if you open up that zip file or unzip it or whatever, then there should be a folder called Dragon's STF in there. All you have to do is drag and drop. Do you like that pun there? So if you go into there, then you won't actually have to worry about any of these other things. I'll explain these into future episodes. But if you choose to use any of my functions, I would appreciate some credit because I was the one who made them. But you can see that that lightning function is right here, along with everything else that I need to make a video about. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you like this idea. Let me know if you want more. If you want to suggest something, go to the Dragons subreddit in the description below and have fun with this lightning function. I'm sure you will, especially if you're not very good at commands as well. You can still use them. It's great.